Hello and welcome to this Million Tree Pledge new member interview. Today I am delighted to have Emily with me from Rebound Returns. They're one of our newest pledges. And Emily, I'm going to jump straight in like I always do and ask you the question, why did you guys decide to take the pledge?
Yeah, well, Rebound Returns really passionate about sustainability to the point where it kind of forms our mission statement. So our mission statement is we want to help retailers achieve smarter, more sustainable returns whilst enhancing the customer experience. And really to do that, we don't want to just talk the talk, we want to walk the walk too. We want to get stuck in with lots of different partnerships to try and help secure a bit of a greener future, really. So we were already using ecology to help offset our office impact. And when it came to this Million Tree Pledge, this challenge, it was something that we really wanted to get involved in. We work with a bunch of retailers, and we're in this position of influence as well, which is why I wanted to join, because we could get more retailers involved, get more trees planted. It's kind of like a collaborative effort. So that's why we decided to join, really, just to help the future and try and secure a bit more of a brighter tomorrow is the reason.
That's lovely. And what's the response been, from because you are influencers with, but from your client base as well, and also your staff, like what's people's response been?
Yeah, I think we're getting so much support for it, and we really kind of started to push the messaging out towards the end of last year, that we were thinking of doing it by instead of sending Christmas cards out, we planted trees in retailers' names in our forest. So we've got in our forest now a bunch of for a lot of our retailers, like name dropping, like ASOS, Misguided we work with. And what we've found is retailers are starting to really care so much about sustainability. It's really going up their agenda at the moment, that something like this is just a no-brainer for them. So I'm hoping, we've only been part of the Million Tree Pledge officially for a few weeks, so we're starting to kind of ramp up the communication to our retailers, and hopefully we'll get some more on board really soon.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a great thing for them to put on their websites, right? That actually, with the returns, there's a sustainability piece. I mean, for people that don't exactly know what you guys do you mind just sort of putting it in really sort of layman's terms to explain it to them?
Yeah, of course. So Rebound Returns, we are a global returns provider. So we manage the returns, as I mentioned, for the likes of ASOS, Mango, Gymshark, Misguided, to name but a few. We do that through a combination of our technology and also our transport and logistical expertise. So if I am a shopper, I've received my dress, don't like it for whatever reason, I could be, let's say I'm in Hong Kong, don't like it, want to return it, they will log on to the retailer's website but to register that return, but actually they'll be using the Rebound network. So they would go on, register for a label, drop it off at the post office, and then unbeknown to them, it's entering the Rebound network of consolidation points. So it would go to our warehouse in Hong Kong, get consolidated, and then flown over to the UK or wherever that retailer is in the world. So we're a really flexible solution. We can support returns wherever, whenever. Is kind of what we're trying to do. And because we're a consolidated model, it means that I can plot your carbon emissions, we can do the offset, this lovely piece with the Million Tree Pledge as well. It all kind of ties in together really nice to help retailers really understand the environmental impact of returns.
So it's kind of like, it sounds like, if I were a retailer, I could either do the logistic returns piece myself, but there's obviously a lot of cost, or I can use someone who might be okay, but where you differentiate is you guys are flexible and you've got the sustainability piece, which consumers do want. I mean, personally, I've been hiding away with COVID for the last couple of years. But I started going back to the office. I thought, well, I'll buy some things online, and like every item of clothing I bought had a message about how, these jeans use less water, we offset this. Like, it's such a strong message. So I guess it's quite a powerful USP for you guys to say, look, actually, we're not just sort of talking the talk, we're actually walking the walk, and we're going way beyond our carbon footprint by planting 1 million trees by a set date.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. I think a retailer, if they don't use a solution like Rebound, typically used to use, like the label in the boxes, and the shopper would open it, there's a label, they stick it on, take it to the post office. Now, the problem with that is two real problems with it. The first is the retailer has no idea what's coming back and why. So shopper is putting it on, so there's problems with, getting their warehouse ready. They don't know what's coming back. They might have discontinued that item. They don't know there's a bunch of returns coming back. So it could end up with a bunch of stock that they're no longer selling. What happens to that? Heaven forbid not landfill, but that's one kind of problem with it. But the other problem is the sustainability element with these pieces of paper and actually putting them in. If we know the fashion is kind of around a 30% return rate, that means 70% of those pieces of paper are just going in the bin. So using the Rebound platform means retailers can remove that paperwork. That's one great thing, and they know what's coming back as well. So double thumbs up.
I had no idea it was 30% returns. That's incredible. I guess because online shopping, right? And I imagine the demand's just shot up since the pandemic, right? Because everyone's like, well, we can't go in shops, or if they're open, we don't really want to go and wear a mask. So, but 30%, that's more than I'd imagined it would be. I imagine that's probably going to keep growing as more people just get used to shopping online, right?
Absolutely, and it's upwards of 30%. Really, it depends the type of products that retailers are selling. So we see that typically formal wear has quite a high return rate. We're all guilty of it. If you go into a wedding, you might buy 2 or 3 different outfits, knowing you're going to return a bunch of them, and you're only going to keep one of the dresses, right? Whereas beauty, not so high return rate, because you tend to know what shade, colour you are, and whatever. So you buy your lipstick, and you're not likely going to send it back. So we can support any kind of retailer. We have people who sell mattresses working with Rebound, a bunch of them. But yeah, like you say, I think sustainability is really growing, and it has grown a lot since the pandemic. We've found, as you mentioned there, shoppers are buying more during the pandemic. That's absolutely true, and we saw kind of a shift in the type of products that shoppers were selling. All of a sudden, they wanted comfy tracksuit bottoms and loungewear because they're not leaving the house, and not so much wanting dresses. But what we did see was during the pandemic, there was a lot of Netflix documentaries. David Attenborough did one. People were doing wardrobe clear outs and wanted to donate to charity, but the charity shops couldn't take any products because they were closed. So shoppers didn't know what to do, and it was like this moment of reflection, really. And we've come out of this pandemic kind of, well, hopefully coming out, touch wood, where shoppers are kind of understanding a little bit more about their environmental impacts and are questioning it, which is why, again, the Million Tree Pledge is so timely for us to join when we did.
That's so interesting. And I guess like you taking this big stance. Obviously, if you have a lot of the big reelers, the ASOS of the world, the Misguided, and so on, like you can demand that the couriers and the actual transporters, that they up their game, that they have a plan, right? And you can choose and put money towards the ones that do have a net zero target, that are looking to draw down their lifetime emissions, which was a big thing that we talk about Million Tree Pledge. That most people don't realise that you can't just get to net zero and it's going to be okay. We need to draw down all of the lifetime carbon emissions that we've all collectively put up there. But that's quite a cool position to be in, to say to these guys, actually, look, unless you are upping your game here, measuring your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions and have a plan to get them down to zero, then actually we'll go with someone else. So it's almost like you hold quite a strong position, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of I join a bunch of retailer calls right at the start, when they're in the sales pipeline, all the way through to when they become a client of Rebound. And that is one of the key questions they ask is, okay, which are the greener carriers? Why are they greener? So what we're doing at the moment is we're about to send out a survey to all of our carriers, and we work with over 250 carriers globally. and trying to understand exactly what they can offer from a sustainability point of view. Are they using electric vehicles, for example? What are they doing about offsetting their emissions? Just trying to understand the full picture so that we can then rank these carriers and then best advise our customers. I think that's going to be really key moving forward, as well as kind of sustainability ramps up in retailers' minds too.
Absolutely. Well, if anyone wants to take the Million Tree Pledge, you know where to send them.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to go a league table. Are they pledges, yes or no? But obviously, I mean, we have to be careful, because obviously we just talk about planting trees. It can be sort of seen as greenwashing, of like, oh, let's go on and continue to pollute and dump greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and then just plant trees and hope it's going to be okay. And obviously, it's not what we're saying. It is that, stage one of just racing to zero and then starting to draw down everything you've ever done. Those are sort of the two steps we all need to take. So that's good. Well, look, I'm keen to learn about your personal story, right? How long you've been with Rebound Returns, how you got involved, because obviously I'm interviewing you here, and it's great to hear about the company, but I'd love to hear about your story and your views on the climate crisis and why it's important to you.
Yeah, okay. So I've been with Rebound now six and a half years. 6.5 years I've been with Rebound. Rebound is probably 7.5 years old, so I've been with it since the very beginning, really. And really, I was looking after the biggest account. I used to look after ASOS here, and I was their day-to-day contact, making sure that parcels arrived on time, that kind of thing, as an account manager. And then what happened was, actually ASOS asked us to plot our carbon emissions. And the company partnered with a company called Avico. They were then called Carbon Smart. And what they did was they helped us understand our whole network from a carbon point of view, all the routes that we were taking and the associated carbon emissions that were being released because of that. And I found myself spending more time looking at carbon data and looking at ways that we can help our retailers achieve more smarter and greener returns, and less time actually managing the ASOS account. So with that, I spoke to our CEO, Graham, who's absolutely fantastic, and I mentioned to him, look, I'm really passionate about sustainability, and actually my degree and everything was in that. I kind of stepped away slightly for the time being. And he said, right, well, let's go for it. And I've never looked back since. And I've been in this position now for 2.5 years as head of sustainability here. So I've helped kind of carve our sustainability strategy, which focus on 4 key pillars. So we've got climate change, so all about plotting the carbon impact of returns. We've got reducing waste, so helping retailers go completely paperless, which is kind of what I mentioned earlier. We've got social good and donating to charity, and we're diamond patrons of a charity called In Kind Direct, which we do that with. We've also got the circular economy, and what we've done is we've adapted the returns portal to facilitate take-backs and charity donations. So shoppers, when they receive their items online, they can have a little wardrobe clear out and do a donation of their items to charity. So we're just trying to use all of the technology and everything we've got at the moment for returns to just help make it more sustainable, really. And a big part of that is working with retailers. I work very closely with them, probably on a few calls every week with them, trying to understand what matters to retailers and why, and then tweaking our policy to match that, so that we're never kind of left behind. We've always got what retailers want, and trying to help them achieve their goals.
It sounds quite, I'm going to use the word revolutionary. I think I will, because I imagine that your competitors 5-7 years ago weren't really thinking like this at all, right? I think that a lot of people play lip service and go, yeah, we agree. We've done something. We've given a bit of money to the Woodland Trust once, or we've done something that's a token gesture. But to have those 4 pillars, I think it's amazing. The circular economy piece is brilliant, and the zero waste. Like, you're really, really thinking about it. And like you say, it's quite inspiring, because you guys do have a lot of influence over massive retailers, right? I mean, the size of ASOS, gosh, that's that site must do hundreds of millions a month, right, in revenue, if not billions. I mean, that's huge, you know. And it's 30% upwards, right, of their. But just talking to them and trying to help them understand this. It's funny. I had a call a few weeks ago. I was quite lucky to meet the CEO of Pets at Home, and he was saying a lot of retailers. You know, he sits on the British Retail Consortium and a CEO group, and a lot of them are trying to come to grips with this. You know, I mean, Pets at Home are actually doing really well. They've got an ECG advisory board. They've got plans with their scopes 1, 2, 3 of emissions. They're doing really well, and they're seen, you know, by their sort of, you know, large sort of retail peers as sort of leading the way. Because a lot of them are struggling because they know they need to do something, but they're not sure exactly what to do. And obviously, retail, it is a challenging sector. I mean, we have retail clients we do digital marketing for, and it is, you know, they can be more reactive. It is very seasonal. It is, you know, there tends to be more ways people can feel stress in that sector. So to give them clear guidance they must be really grateful for that.
Yeah, I think it was last year with the Drapers the Drapers event was online, and there was a lady doing a talk on it, and she mentioned that when it comes to sustainability, it's so easy for retailers to just be overwhelmed. There are so many areas that they can focus their efforts on, right? But focusing it on 1 or 2 and doing it really well first is great, because then you can get your messaging right, and really thinking about ways that you can use your sustainability strategy to align with what your shoppers want. So, for example, we've got retailers like Wetsuit Outlet, for example. They focus on beach cleans because they know that that's the kind of area that shoppers would want. And Woolovers, they focus, you know, the jumpers, they focus on making sure that the fibres are right, because again, it's more likely to align with their shoppers. So I think that's kind of really key with it. And as you say, look, I love getting on calls with retailers who maybe aren't as big as ASOS, but they're desperate to make a change, and they ask me, where can we start? And actually, a really simple solution is, you know, understanding your returns. It's something that we can do really easily here, because obviously I'm employed to plot it, calculate it, and all of that. But thinking of ways that you can help reduce waste from landfill, and a way of doing that is actually doing this online clothing bank that we've launched with the Salvation Army. So Opoly launched it not so long ago, actually, and they've done really well with kind of getting the messaging out there, so shoppers can have that wardrobe clear out, which is great. And as well, with reducing waste, we also tackle the beauty industry. Charlotte Tilbury launched it not so long ago, and they've diverted over 900 pieces of packaging from landfill, which is fantastic, using the portal.
That's amazing. Gosh, and you think like, the reduction of waste and what that plastic can do when it breaks down and releases methane and all sorts of greenhouse gases. So that's amazing. So I'm thinking, if I were a retailer watching this now, and I'm not ASOS, I don't have very large budget. I'm sort of sort of a decent e-com website, but I know I need to handle this. Obviously, beyond speaking to retail returns, like what's the sort of first piece of advice you tend to give to people that say, hey, look, where do we start?
Yeah, I think, so do you mean from a returns point of view, or just from I
was thinking more sustainability, but I think you could answer both, because I think they'd find it fascinating, because presumably they've got a returns policy in place, and presumably they'd come to you guys because they know it could be better. So maybe start with returns, and then if there's a bigger sort of, here's the one bit of advice I always give to retailers. I'll be fascinated to hear that, because I know a lot of retailers myself. So.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to returns, the first piece of advice I would give is you have to understand returns. You have to know what is coming back and why. And the easiest way that you can do that is by taking them online, because you can generate reports, you can see exactly the products which are coming back and the reasons why they're coming back. It allows you to spot any manufacturing issues. So for example, if you've got a bunch of black t-shirts coming back, they're all coming back because they're too small, you might be able to go to your manufacturer and say, well, actually, have you sized these right? Because I've got all these coming back. I'm not sure if I can sell them now because the sizes might be off, and what am I going to do with these products? So I would definitely say the first thing to do from a returns point of view is take them online so you can understand them. once you've understood them, then you can start thinking about ways that you can reduce their impact. So how can you reduce returns? And honestly, that sounds mad coming from like a returns expert.
Yeah.
I'm saying reduce them. But when you reduce them, you reduce the carbon impact of them, you know, the potential waste. And how you can do that is thinking about, you know, sizing guides, adding them onto your website. And we're seeing a big growth in those actually at the moment. They're getting all technical and fabulous from what I've seen online. You know, you can put in there your size and like your weight, your height, what size you are in a different shop, and they will instantly say, cool, so you're a size 10 or whatever. So you can shop with more confidence instead of buying 3 or 4 dresses. 3 or 4 sizes in the same dress. You know what size you are, so you can buy confidently. So there's that. And then there's the other element of once you've reduced them as much as you can, then you can start thinking about offsetting. And you know, Rebound, we're a company that track every single return that comes through the network. We know the carbon emissions associated with every single return. So then we can start, you know, smartly saying to retailers, okay, so in 2021, you emitted this amount of carbon. How do you think about offsetting it using these gold standard projects? And we use ecology for that. So that's kind of from a returns lens is what I would say, how I would do it. From sustainability in general, as I mentioned earlier, it's just kind of taking a step back for a minute. Don't get overwhelmed, but think, okay, what is going to matter the most to my shoppers? Because if it matters a lot to my shoppers, it's more likely to kind of keep my customer base and generate more sales going forward. Things like the beach clean, things like convenience as well. So ASOS was doing a project which was absolutely brilliant called Relove, where if a shopper bought something online, then they could give like a clear out from their wardrobe to the driver when they dropped it off. So it's kind of like convenience and keeping it all in tow. So yeah, I would say think about what can align with your shoppers is probably the main advice I would give, and don't jump straight into the complicated stuff. You know, making messaging meaningful doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to go into all of the sustainability jargon and all of the complicated calculations that come with it. Just say meaningful things and back them up. And that's what I think the Million Tree Pledge, bringing it back to that, it gives us this layer of credibility because we have a goal to hit and we're going to hit 1 million trees. And I think having something like that, it makes you sound more trustworthy to your shoppers as well, especially if you can keep coming back and kind of reporting on your progress with it. You know, like this month we hit 7,000 trees, whatever, and you'll start to get a bit of a fan base behind you, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's such brilliant advice, Emily, and it's exciting. I'm going to actually. I'm going to share this with some of my network and retail clients, because I think there's, like you say, I mean, I'm a big fan of the simplicity piece. I think like anyone can make a message even more complex and sound lofty and wordy. And it's just, I mean, that's where the idea of the Million Tree Pledge came from. It does what it says, right? We're pledging to plant 1 million trees, and that's it. So no, the simplicity there, I think, is so powerful, and it increases conversion rate on websites, you know, which increases revenue and lifetime value of customers. So there's a business case in all of this, and it's something that, you know, it's not why we do it, but the more pledges I speak to, the more evident it becomes that actually the more you do this more purpose-based stuff and talk about it, and not because you're bragging, but because you want to inspire, that just helps with there's a bit of business case, whether it's staff retention, you know, client retention, winning new clients, increasing conversion rates, different parts of sales and marketing funnel, because they say is that word trust. They trust you. You know, there's that thing, like we want to work with people that we trust who are equally as concerned about the climate crisis, you know, that want a habitable planet for their children and grandchildren. That probably segues me quite nicely onto just getting, I always ask everyone this, I don't want to get, some people get really like a bit stressed about it, but I want to just find out, like, you know, especially because you did your degree in sustainability, like
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now about the climate crisis? You know, a level of optimism versus pessimism. And it's okay to be pessimistic. You know, I have moments of that. But how are you feeling right now with everything that's going on in the world? It's obviously what's going on geopolitically. It's hard to be optimistic, but stepping back from that and hoping it's resolved soon. What are we thinking about the climate crisis? What are your views?
I think climate anxiety is a real thing. I suffer from that. But I think what we've got now, what we've never had before, is these platforms where people can communicate with each other. People are learning more and more about the problem, and with that, there's learning more and more about the solution. So, you know, I mentioned the David Attenborough Netflix documentary. There's a bunch of things on every night. Like Greta Thunberg, she's brilliant. She's on Radio 1 all the time. She's great. There are things that now you can't hide from it. And I think that is going to be the key driver in making sure that it doesn't get out of hand. And while it is scary, I do believe that it can't be fixed overnight, but through partnerships and collaborating with businesses and things like the Million Tree Pledge, offsetting emissions, thinking smarter. We know businesses, there's going to be like governmental pressures on businesses to start thinking smarter as well. I think we've got all these tools now to really make a change, and I do hope I hope that I think it's going to be, I hope it's reversible, but it all comes down to individual impact. And I don't want, the worst thing that can happen is if somebody thinks, oh, it doesn't matter because everybody else is doing it, I don't need to do it. That's where it can get kind of problematic. But the media and everything is what's going to push, I think, to drive the real change here. And I do think that together we can reverse the climate crisis, I hope.
That's a very impassioned argument. I'm not going to argue against it because, there are moments when I feel less optimistic than that, but I think it's the fact we're having this conversation, and I think like 10 years ago we might have been called tree huggers or eco warriors or hippies, or we would be considered not mainstream. But the fact that, you know, I imagine, you know, most people are having this conversation, it's not considered sort of on the fringe, is really lovely, you know. And perhaps our pledge isn't mainstream, but our desire to make change is. And I think now it has become mainstream. It's now the norm that if you're not worried about this, you are the extreme, right? You're on the fringes. And it's funny because I don't listen to Radio 1 because it's probably my age, I suppose. I used to. I used to think I was cool listening to One Extra, but there we are. But the fact that they say Greta's on there all the time, there's a narrative, and I think it's so important as sort of millennials get closer to middle age, you know, and have more power and influence in society. You know, you can only really, I'm not being ageist, there are plenty of people who are baby boomers who are worried about this as well. But do you know what I'm saying? Like it tends to be, you know, slightly more skewed to younger people being even more worried, partly because they're going to feel more of the effects moving forward. So that is inspiring. Cool. Well, look, I'm mindful we're coming up to half an hour. Is there anything, like if anyone wants to get in touch with you guys, should they reach out to you directly, or what's the best way to contact like you and Rebound Returns and get in touch to learn more?
Yeah, I think, well, personally, my email is emily@reboundreturns.com. It's quite easy. But on our Rebound Returns website, there's a contact page in there where anybody can reach out, whether you're a retailer wanting to understand your return impact, or if you just want to understand how you can make returns smarter. It's all kind of on there. We've also got our impact report on there, which I published last year, which is it's a meaty document. It's 65 pages of brilliance. It's fantastic. It took a long time, but
if you send me the link to that, I will put it in the description when we put it on YouTube. So I want to read that as well. So.
Yeah, have a read. I'm refreshing it as we speak with last year's calculations, so that's all going to the design agency next week to make it look all cool and stuff. But it's as I say, what we're trying to do is we're trying to communicate our efforts as clearly as we can to retailers in a way that they can understand. I think the more that they can understand, the more likely they are to act. So trying to get as much out as possible through that, even though it's 65 pages. I love it. I love writing stuff like that and carbon calculating it. It's my favourite part of my job is calculating. I'm going off on a tangent here, but
this is fine. This is good stuff.
I get all excited. My favourite part of my job is calculating our carbon every year, because what we do every year is, once I've calculated it, I sit down with our logistics director, Andy. We work out ways that we can think smarter. Why are we routing via 2 different planes, for example, if we're coming back from certain countries? Why aren't we going direct? And we put those changes in place, and then the next year, the intensity, the carbon intensity, so the carbon for every parcel has dropped, and it's like, it's a great feeling to see those numbers coming down. And of course, a big part of that is joining things like the Million Tree Pledge. It just holds us accountable and keeps us together, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, and there's lots of like-minded people. We've got quite a few chief sustainability officers as part of the pledge cohort. So there's a few people I'll have to introduce you to that I think have the same glee when the numbers are coming down. So it's that kindred spirit. So I think we all have that a bit. Well, look, Emily, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope everyone else has found this interesting and useful.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.